In Japan, there is increasing speculation the country could soon get its sixth prime minister in 5 years. This is Prime Minister Naoto Kan is widely expected to announce his intention to step down sometime today. Kan is reportedly set to officially resign on Tuesday after the ruling DPJ party votes for a new leader and therefore a new prime minister on Monday. Ex-Foreign Minister Seiji Mihara is leading the polls. Some of the key issues Japan's new leader is going to have to grapple with is the stronger yen and the weak economy following the March 11th earthquake and tsunami. Glen is partner and head of sales at JI Asia, and he is joining us now from Tokyo. Thank you so much for joining us today, Glen. We were just talking in the break, and you said this is going to be your 18th prime minister. Who do you think? You've been down this road before. Which outcome would be best for the markets?
Well, it's very difficult to tell at this point, and I think largely the market participants have gotten used to prime ministerial changes at this point. So I'm not sure if any of the candidates will necessarily make the market happy. But I know Maehara has had some very positive things said about him in the market. He's very young, 49 years old. On the negative side, he does have a reputation of being rather a loose cannon. And in the tabloids and whatnot this morning, he's gotten quite a bit of negative press, and Ozawa is now saying that he doesn't support him. So I think his chances of actually being the new leader may be quite diminished at this point.
This is the critical point, isn't it, Glen? Ichiro Ozawa is ultimately, in many ways, the backroom power broker here. If he's not giving his backing to Maehara, who could he give it to, and who's the front runner now if his chances are diminished?
Well, Ozawa has said many things. You know, he threw out Nishioka's name the other day as well, which, frankly, I think Nishioka would have a very slim chance of any sort of leadership role. But perhaps Kano at this point might be the leader. He's known as kind of a bridge builder. He's older, at 69 years old, and with his experience and kind of peacemaking abilities, I think he may end up being the leader in the race at this point.
Does it matter, Glen, who gets elected? I mean, as you say, you've been through 18 different prime ministers. The political system in Japan appears to be broken, and as an investor, a lot of people stay away from Japan for that very reason.
Well, exactly, Lisa. You know, I think we've got a situation where since perhaps Nakasone or before him, Tanaka Kakue were really the last real kind of leaders we saw in Japanese politics. And at this point, I think we've got a system that is hiding largely behind a blanket of dysfunctionality in Kasumigaseki. And I would say that the market is well accustomed to changes in prime ministers, and what the market really wants to see is some change in Japan. They want to see Japan willing to get rid of this deflationary type of policy and move towards a growth stance and something that shows a real future for Japan. And I think that's what the market's looking for.
Glen, there are some Herculean challenges for whoever becomes the next Prime Minister next week. What is the top priority? What is the top policy priority right now?
Well, in terms of policy and priority, I'd say that, you know, obviously the reconstruction efforts after the earthquake are on the hearts and minds of the Japanese. I'd also think that at this point, after so many years of deflationary policies and willingness to accept this lack of growth and basically giving away a manufacturing base and many of the smart minds in Japan, giving them away to Japan's competitors, I think Japan is very cognizant of the fact that we need a new plan to not only reconstruct, but to reconstruct the economy and to focus on some growth and some policies. I would point to a tax policy or a new energy policy that could really get things moving and would actually result in a weaker yen, which again would create a positive cycle going forward.
Well, as things stand now, what's the best approach for investors to take? The Nikkei, it's down to 87.66. Which sectors should people who are interested in taking a chance on Japan in their portfolio be targeting?
It's a great question, Lisa. I think at this point I would focus on companies that have global technologies and some sort of global presence, so they're well diversified, so that earnings are well diversified. And obviously, if they've got a global business already, they've learned to adapt not only a stronger yen, but they've learned to compete on a global basis.
And what's your advice to Forex traders who are investing in yen or shorting it?
Well, at this point, I think it's clear that Japan is willing to continue on a deflationary policy and an anti-growth policy, whereas the rest of the world, especially Japan's key competitors, are very focused on weakening their currency and have made it very clear, the U.S. first and foremost, by saying that we are not going to have deflation at any cost. So clearly, I think that makes the yen a great bet going forward on the yen strength side.
Okay, Glenn, thank you for joining us today. Good to have you on the show, as always. That was Glen Wood from JI
Thanks very
Asia
much.
joining us.